I also have about 10 years of experience working in language. And so that's kind of what brought me to be at SKC with this program.
Milani Louis Quest into so Suzette Scutis Qualchin in Mestem Tony Sandoval Uchin Squamit Mayhem Will Scutis Whale Scutis Natsal Maintenance Whale Ksalk. My name is Melanie Sandoval, or Milani is my Salish name. I'm the teacher, kind of sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied, for the Salish Language Education Development Program for the language portion. And we've been doing this for 4 years. And before that, I was teaching at Head Start and in Kusum and even at public school. So yeah, we'll talk more about that. Lemlips.
Lemlips ladies. Pesia, myself, Louis Quest, Craig O'Catterley, Munson, Shui Popahot. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Munson. My parents are Craig and Kathy Munson. We are, as a family, my parents have provided a great deal of support for my learning journey, my family, and all together. Milani will talk a little bit more about her journey, but ultimately, it's just really has been a blessing to be able to move from being an educator to working at OPI in the Indian Education Division, to realizing that we needed to be rethinking education for our communities with our communities. And so I have been blessed to be able to work with Milani and Rosie and Cheney Bell and others in the community to begin this work collaboratively. And that kind of leads us off to where we are today. Together, multiple entities in Kusum, beginning with Kusum and leading into the Salish Kalispel Culture Committee and Salish Kootenai College have come together. And today's presentation will share the story of that journey. So we'll just jump off into that. So just as a brief introduction, the three of us are partnered together to work on this project from the SKC side. We also have partners at the Salish Kalispel Culture Committee and with Kusum Salish Language School. Although not everybody is listed here, these are some of the key players. Okay, Milani, you just tell me when you are ready for me to move forward.
I can talk now. So for those of you guys who may not know, highlighted there is where the Flathead Indian Reservation is in Western Montana. There's three languages on our reservation: Salish, Kudlispe, and Kootenai. And so Salish and Kudlispe are dialects of the Salishan family that stretches all the way from the coast, and Kootenai is a language isolate, and we don't have any relationship. I don't know, they're a language isolate, so we're not related to them in language wise. But right now we have less than 10 speakers who are first language speakers who learned it when they were growing up. We have probably I think 8,000 tribal members, but very few of them are remaining that, sorry. If you guys can hear that, we have a very few remaining Salish or first language speakers. Sorry, I'm getting thrown off. So you can go to the next slide. And so when I started, I graduated from the University of Montana with my elementary ed degree. And at that time, I taught for a few years in a public school. And then a group of us decided we need to follow what the Maori and the Hawaiians were doing with their immersion nests. And so we decided to make in Usum Salish language school. So that started in 2002. At first there was only 4 students, and we've grown. I think they said there was like 47 students today. So it goes from preschool or toddler to 8th grade. And so that's located in Arley. And yeah, we start from the beginning wanting to have first language speakers plus teachers, younger teachers who are learning, and just grow as they grew. So we are actually having our 20th year reunion celebration, not reunion, celebration on May 27th in Arley. So if you guys are around to celebrate, so we're pretty proud of that. So go ahead, the next slide. So while we were at Usum, we realized that as teachers, we didn't really have the language, enough school language or just language to bring ourselves up to a proficiency to stay in the language all day in school. So around that time, our sister tribes in Washington, the Spokane, Okanagan, the Kalispell, they had a curriculum that they were developing for adults. And so they are very free with that curriculum and said, here, take it and use it and do what you want. So we used it, and we just started to do, we got a grant, and we developed the adult language program using that curriculum. It's really awesome. We'll talk about that in the next slide. But we try to get as many people through that program as we can, just to bring up our language proficiency on many levels. And we're hoping that they become teachers. So not all of them will be teachers in a school, but a lot of them will become teachers to their friends or to their children. As you can see, that a lot of the people in this picture actually are still with our program and are taking college classes. And we'll talk about that too more later. But so that this is what started the whole adult language programs. And so what's the next slide? The next slide is so in 2018, I believe, we started an apprentice program officially through the tribe, the Salish Culture Committee. And then we also were lucky to, at the same time, have the grant to start the Salish Language Educator Development Program. And just those two. So we were able to overlap and teach it all together, and give people college credit for it so they could work towards a degree. So if you look at this diagram here, our curriculum is 3 levels, and they're about 500 to 600 vocabulary per level. They include sentences, phrases, dialogues. We also have workbooks and CDs and even computer programs that go with them. Some of them have apps. So there is if you're interested in this template, on interiorsalish.com, Chris Parkin developed it. He calls it a fluency transfer system. So it's not just a method, it's an actual system that takes you from novice, intermediate, and advanced. Of course, we'd still like to keep on continuing, if we can get that to that place. And we're always growing with this curriculum as well. But it's been pretty effective at producing speakers, as you'll see later. We'll highlight that a little bit as well. So I think that's pretty much the background in a nutshell. So You want to talk about more?
So I'll share a little bit about kind of how the program was developed. Like Melanie was saying, we knew that we needed to create an intensive adult language program because our speakers, our fluent speakers who were left, were older, not able to come into the schools. And so we knew that that's what we needed to do to save the language at that point. And so the first adult language program was started through an ANA grant at Inkusum Salish Language School. And we put about 4 or 5 students through the program. And then at that time, we had some certified teachers in the classrooms as well. And we were saying, you know, okay, so what do we need to do to support an immersion environment in our school? And we were ready to put those adult language students into the classrooms and rotate them. And they were saying to us, we're not ready for that. We don't know what we're doing. We have the language, but we don't know how to manage kids. We don't know how to create curriculum. And we don't feel like we have the skills to be effective in the classroom. And so myself, Echo Brown, Elizabeth DeRoche, we're at Inkusum at the time, Cindy Odell and Michael were here on campus. And we started these conversations around, okay, so maybe we'll write this grant and we'll do some workshops. So we'll add some classroom management workshops and some curriculum development workshops. And as we started developing the program, we realized that these students would be getting so much information that they might as well be getting something out of it, a certificate or a degree or something, because the amount of knowledge that they would be learning besides even just the language credits is huge. And so we met and created an associate's degree program. We actually went back and forth between the certificate. Do we have a certificate? Do we not have a certificate? Because, you know, it was just a hard decision of what's the right fit for this program. And so what we want to make sure that people understand is that this program was developed from an ask from the community. It wasn't something that Salish Kootenai College said, I think we'll create this language educator program. It was a group of us at Inkusum that approached SKC and then tried to figure out what is the best option to create the best language teachers in our community, because that is one of the main avenues that we are using to revive languages is through the schools. And the other thing is, Mel kind of touched on this a little bit, is that it was just ironic. We wrote a grant, we didn't get funded. We wrote another one. The college submitted that one, and they did get funded at the same time that the tribe chose to fund 10 full-time language apprentice students. And like Mel was saying, some will become teachers, some won't. And so we have apprentices that are just learning the language, and then we have apprentices that are learning the language and they're doing these other classes on top of the language classes that they're in. The other thing is we want to highlight it is intensive Salish language classes. That means they are at the Longhouse Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day in language class. And that has definitely been tough for some of our students. But in 2 years, because of that intensity, they learn a lot of language, and it has been one of the more successful options that we have to get people as much language as we can in 2 years. So the next slide, Michael's going to share a little bit more about the program and the specifics.
Lemlem's Rosie. So as Rose, oops, I'm going too fast. As Rosie explained, the first and second year, and Milani went through the structure of the program, the levels 1, 2, and 3 of intensive language learning. You can see kind of the dark tan boxes at the top highlight the fact that students are at the Longhouse learning language all day, every day in the first 2 years. So you can see in the first year, if you go downward on the left-hand column there, that students learn levels 1 and level 2 of the curriculum, which is titled Salish Ukalispa Wewishton. In that first year, they finish, they finish both books of the first level within a month and a half, 2 months total in the intensive Salish language program. So that curriculum, that amount of curriculum in our normal SKC classes is usually covered within 2 whole years of learning language. So they cover 2 years of normal language learning, just to reemphasize, in 2 months. It's pretty incredible. They also begin in that first year taking introductory general education and NLTE coursework specifically. The second year, if students then go on beyond the intensive Salish language certificate option, they can go into the Associate of Science of Native Language Teacher Education, the SLED option, and then they go on to learn the higher level elder stories, the learning through stories. There are lessons and stories embedded into levels 1 and 2, but level 3 provides the actual culturally embedded elder stories as the learning content. And then they go deeper into the education classes and specifically into NLTE coursework. Preparation up to the associate's degree provides students the opportunity to begin thinking about human growth and development, to start looking at the introductory education courses and begin to start thinking about language acquisition on an introductory level. And then similar to the elementary education option and early childhood and early childhood P3 options that SKC offers, the next 2 years focuses specifically on that deeper content where students are actually doing a full-time practicum and or they are teaching. At this point, a lot of our apprentices become teachers. They move from being in the Longhouse full-time every day into working within the curriculum and or concentrating even more deeply on their educator and native language teacher education courses specifically. So keep in mind that almost all of the general education and native language teacher educator coursework actually occurs after hours, after they have been at the Longhouse from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock, right? So then they go at 4:30, they begin their courses in NLTE or general education, unless we can offer them on a Friday afternoon and or on the weekend. And that cycle continues all year long. However, we have been able to make it a little easier by expanding it to this bachelor's option. So it's not quite as intensive as it was. And that's where this 3rd and 4th year come, the 2 columns on the right, where they begin to focus specifically on immersion pedagogy, intensive native language teacher methods and coursework, and specifically Salish language for educators. That's where students really start to dive in and begin to think about curriculum development, assessment for native language teacher education. They start to think deeply about applying classroom management strategies in their language specific settings. And they then at the end, our first cohort of bachelor's degree students are graduating this quarter in June. And we're excited. They're starting to do their action research, not starting, they're finishing up their action research. Now we're in week 7, just ending week 7. So that's pretty exciting. They're almost there. And just to see the amazing transformation and how they're actively thinking about how and what they do and how they can make adjustments is pretty incredible. To see their teacher skills and the language, the amazing amounts of language that they hold as well. It's pretty amazing. Jump in. Did I miss anything, ladies? Would you like to add anything? Okay.
I don't think so. I was just making sure the slide is in there. But I think that we'll have 3 graduates. And I guess I would add that before it was a 3-year associates and it was really intense. And after our first group graduated, some of them said, I'm not stopping now because I'm continuing on, because if I stop now, I'll never continue. And some said, you know, we have young moms of 5 kids that are in our program. And they said, I need a break. The cool thing that's happening is they're seeing their peers graduate, and we've had 2 students rejoin us this spring, and we'll eventually move on. And so our students definitely pull each other along and support each other as well. And that's kind of that beauty of those cohorts. So.
And so this is just, Rosie, those are such important notes. This is just a quick list of some of the courses you'll find. On the left-hand side, you can see the listing of specific NLTE courses that are designed specifically for the NLTE context. And then on the right-hand side, you will see the general education courses that many of our programs within the SKC education division take as part of their programs. So you can see that if students were to choose to move on even further, they could potentially do a bridge into early childhood education or into elementary education if they wanted, fairly easily, because there is quite a bit of overlap, and that and other classes such as curriculum planning and assessment and culturally and linguistically rich context would ultimately probably transfer as well as some of those others on the left-hand side as well. So let me go ahead and open this. We would like to share some of our student narrative, student voices with you. Let me go ahead and do this. Hopefully the volume will work out just right. Hang on one moment.
Amad kan kaslam di khayal khas lam lam shkhil kahwit kan khalwilten yal khwan.
Michael, the sound went off.
Tomorrow can a wowiston ka ulskadli cut spare to Salish. Shaylu chinun wayatloa. That's she eat. Can a wowiston. We're happening Kootenai, Hulasia, Kassin Skadli.
Nawashin Yapin Kutnaksam Fulka and Fulfiltis Itsi Elasya Kakutla. The language means a lot to me personally because it's the language of our ancestors. And our elders have always said that we need to speak our language so they can understand us.
Because the power is in the language, the wisdom is in the language. And all the things that make us who we are is in that language.
Man, touching tills. The kind of wowish and kind cool man. Chin, Ost, Louis. Quam chin cool and lu task hair. Huit sust and look out and cheats. Look and wowish and in and wilt and Collèis, Louis Kulpachs, Hulshay, Chinas Quaitlam Yellow, Twana Ke Hesia, Kudlam Lushay, Nemka Ashyo to Wilch, Ulka, Wowish and Kalius suit.
Salish Nuelston, Shelluke in Gulaman, Shelluke Wilton. Salish language is not just a way to communicate, it's our way of life. It is our life. It holds our culture, it holds our history, it holds everything that's dear to us as a people.
The Native Language Teacher Education Program was created to develop highly proficient Salish language teachers in coordination with Nkusum Salish Language School. Nkusum had certified teachers who lack the Salish language, and they had Salish language apprentices who lack the necessary skills to be effective in the classroom. And so a partnership was developed between Salish Kootenai College and Nkusum to create the Salish Language Educator program and therefore develop the Native Language Teacher Education degree.
For the longest time, we had elders or fluent speakers in the classroom who may not have had any educational background as far as classroom management or curriculum development. And we always saw that there was a need to bring the language into that. And so this program is really going to help people be prepared with language and education.
I would have never thought I would have went back to school until I came across this program. It was something that I really, felt passionate about. And so the SLED program has helped me prepare to be able to teach the language in the classroom. They've given me tools for my toolbox to be able to feel confident enough to go in that classroom and teach the language.
I wasn't sure that I was going to do it right away. I found myself back at inclusive teaching. But I had the language, I have some language, but I didn't have the skills to lead a classroom or how to create lesson plans or anything like that. So I decided that I would do this program. And it's been really great. There's so much support in this program, and I'm very thankful for everyone that works with us.
There came a day when I wanted to pursue more education. There had to be something more that I could learn. What is more important than who we are as a people? What is more important than our history, our language, our culture, our tribal education? These are things that I wanted to learn.
I've had many good teachers who were first language speakers who really helped me along the way. And we are losing our elders and we're losing that worldview. And so as much as we can learn about the past is very important to give to our young people to remember who we are.
The Salish Language Educator Development Program and Native Language Teacher Education degree would not be possible without the guidance and partnership of the Salish and Kalispel Culture Committee. The Salish and Kalispel Culture Committee have played an integral role in the development and delivery of classes for the intensive Salish language program.
My language journey has been a yip and hes journey, a really good journey. In my family, my tupia, he felt the first sting of his language and culture leaving. My sahepe, he felt full force, the demand of our language and culture leaving. My mestem, my father, he knew no language and culture, and all those after him did not know either. A beautiful and wise Salish elder once told me that we are all born with our language. And whatever happened to us, that doesn't mean that we don't have it. She said that all we have to do is wake it up. So for generations of genocide of the Salish language and culture in my family, I decided to wake it up.
In Kuwilsh, reawakening language and culture to strengthen identity through education for our tribal communities.
The language to me is more than just the language. I am not Salish. I am a girl from the Fort Belknap Reservation, but ever since I was young, I knew in my heart, in my spooth, I'm Salish, and that's the life I choose to lead. I hope I can continue learning the language, learning about the culture, and I really feel like I owe it to my elders who taught me at Inkusum to continue on, just to teach the younger generation, and hopefully at some point, I think the dream is that we won't have to have adult language classes. We won't have to have special classes for teaching the language, that it'll just be spoken throughout their home. It'll just come naturally.
That 20 years is a generation, every 20 years. So I always to prepare and plan 20 years, that one generation ahead always, right now. You're always going through and to track that as you go through, and you're always preparing for a whole generation ahead. So 20 years from now is another generation. That's when my daughter is 3 years old now. She'll be 23 in 20 years. So hopefully she's highly proficient in the language. She's successful in doing what she wants to do, chasing her dreams, living her life, but knowing who she is through her own language, her identity to herself, her spirit, her being, and connected, really well connected with that. Not just her, but all of our young people. That's what we want to see. We want to see them to know their history, know their culture, know their ways, know their language, and to practice and to participate in all these things.
How will you contribute to the reawakening of our languages and cultures?
Join us for the journey, your journey, in strengthening language and culture in your community.
So we would love to open it up for questions at this time, if you have any that you would like to ask. I think we have about 10 minutes, hopefully.
I was just gonna say, if there's no questions, one thing that's, we've created this program, this is year 4. And locally, there's been a lot of momentum to really put language and culture back into our public schools. And so we are definitely in the recruiting process of students for our program, and I'm encouraging people to learn language and culture. For people who didn't grow up with that, it can be scary. And it can be hard for them to take that jump. And when we say intensive, it is intensive. And so just kind of encouraging young people that you have in your classrooms on a daily basis, encouraging them, you know, our language and culture is what keeps our community strong. And so we need all those advocates that we can, and send them our way. And we need teachers, and we also need language and culture teachers as well. So we'd love to support any students in that journey.
Lumsh for the amazing comments, Adrian and Matt. We can expand on place-based education as well. Hap, it looks like you've asked how many schools have or are planning on hiring language teachers here at CSKT. Would anybody like to speak to that specifically?
I can. St. Ignatius School has had a full-time language teacher. Our Lee School District has had in the past. It sounds like there is somebody teaching there part-time right now. And then the Ronan has in the past, and then it went to part-time, but that is currently one of the positions that we're trying to help recruit somebody for, is that they are advertising, or we're advertising a full-time Salish language instructor for the Ronan School District in the middle school and high school. We do get some requests from other school districts. We're really pushing for full-time positions because people just can't live off of part-time work. But there definitely can be some sort of coordination, I think, between schools too. So yeah, so I think as we create more teachers, there will hopefully be more opportunity as well.
That's one thing that we're still struggling with is, yeah, if we think back to 2016 when Nkusum approached SKC, that same year, the Culture Committee also held a strategic planning event. And together as a community, we determined that there are at least 40 positions that we need filled, or we will need filled within the next 20 years. So that includes positions in each of the school districts. There are 7 different school districts on our reservation, and there are multiple different schools. So if those were filled to the level we hope to be able to fill someday, we have early childhood services who has cultural specialists in various locations across the reservation. We have positions, multiple positions at Salish Kootenai College now. Multiple positions are needed to meet the demands for language teachers at Salish Kalispah Culture Committee. We have multiple positions at Nkusum, and we have a desire to build community schools that are designed by and with each of the communities on our reservation. So in order to fill all of those, we need at least 40 highly qualified and highly skilled language teachers, which means we're in our first 4 years, and we're still really having a hard time finding people, like Rosie said, that can fit each of these roles. So if we keep going, and if we have people who continue to want to be teachers, maybe we can fill those positions. But I agree, right? I hope we get one in Ronan. I hope we get somebody in each of the school districts soon. Soon is within the next 5 or 10 years. But it's a long journey.
The other thing I was going to share, I know Matthew wanted, maybe Michael, you can share about the place-based learning a little bit more, but a lot of times we don't have the expertise here in our community for a lot of these specific classes. And so we're doing a lot of partnering with our neighboring Salish speaking or language, advocates, teachers, learners, in the region to bring them in either as guest speakers or teach these specific classes for our students, because we're still building capacity in our community as well. So.
Yeah, that's important. Without the help of Salish School of Spokane, the Kalispel Tribe, Salish Language House, Cree Shula, and other people, Michelle Johnson, we just wouldn't have. I mean, we have Milani and Cheney and a few people, but they're doing a lot of work already. So how do we support everybody in this learning journey, right? Matt, you did ask about place-based learning, and within that video, you were able to see a few pictures that demonstrate some of the place-based education that we are really working to build at SKC as a whole, but specifically within our Division of Education and Native Language Teacher Ed program. So Tim Ryan has taken over the integrated perspectives in integrated perspectives in science for educators classes, which began, there's a few people who are in the session today who took the original courses, which science courses, which were originally, I think in fall, we taught biology and ecology. In winter, we taught earth and space science, and in spring we taught chemistry and physics. And when Doug Ruman asked me to start teaching those courses, I taught them for a year, and I was like, this just doesn't feel right. Why aren't we teaching the science that is embedded within our culture so that we can actively engage all of the students in our community? Because it's so interesting when you think about the seasonal rounds and how we work and exist and continue to live and thrive within our land and within our system. It's so much more engaging for most people. And so together, the Division of Ed, we built a committee and we restructured those courses. And so now we have 4 seasonally based integrated perspectives in science for educators courses. I taught those courses for a year, and we were able to bring on eminent scholar Tim Ryan, who holds a wealth of knowledge in traditional science education, cultural anthropology, and specifically related to our Salish and Kasanka people. And so at first we co-taught together, and then he has taken those over. And since those courses have been developed, Ottawan Inkashola from the Culture Committee has also asked that we actually begin developing a program that helps support the perpetuation of our culture. So Tim Ryan is now the department head for the Culture and Language Studies program, while also teaching place-based science education courses. So he's very, very busy. And as a team, all of those courses are taught based on our seasonal activities. So for example, right now, Matt, I'm assuming maybe 3 to 5 minutes. Is that accurate?
Moose.
Oh, 4 minutes, moose, une. So that gives us, like right now, Tim is teaching about the first roots, the first ceremonies. He is having students build petsas, our digging sticks, so that we can go out and dig our roots, being spetlum or bitterroot, camas, waithli, and other things. In the summer, we move into berry picking and other seasonally appropriate things. Winter is hunting, fall is hunting, preparing for winter, gathering the last of the berries, ... And then in winter time, you're looking at survival, trapping, various hunting, crossing the mountains for bison hunt, right? Thinking about when the bison robes are the thickest and thinnest and what they're used for. and so on, right? Building and preparing for the rest of the year when you don't have time to make moccasins and clothes and such. And so it's a pretty cool way of being and educating, and we're really excited. Our new CALS program, the apprentices in that program are finishing up their first year of language education. Actually, most of them were in the SLED program and have transferred to CALS. So they have a lot of language already, but they will be beginning their intensive culture and language studies program this next year. So, and all of that will be, they'll have 1 or 2 intensive language courses each week. And then the rest of the week will be spent in place-based, land-based education, apprentice style. So it will be fun to see how it all turns out.
That's all sounding so awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I just love land-based stuff, the kind of getting your hands on things, making the language and the kind of why of language come together, like why are sounds and songs, you know, come out this way. Yeah, I think it works like peanut butter and chocolate or other things if you're allergic to that. Peanut butter and chocolate I love to talk about in terms of native being to this hemisphere as well, and other when we start talking about native plants and stuff. But yeah, I think people are getting ready to start another session here in a couple of minutes. So thank you again, Lemlash, Rosie, Milani, Michael. And I look forward to people making some connections, reaching out in the future and working for the best future for our kids and everyone. So can't thank you enough. And yeah, good luck everyone, and enjoy the next session.